What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and this is 5 Strange Facts, a series where we take a look at the weird side of gaming history. This episode, we're diving into Dark Souls, a rather new franchise that's already gained a massive fan base, partly due to its brilliant design and also because of its incredible difficulty. However, what a lot of people overlook are the fascinating secrets of the games themselves, so this episode, we're going to be going back and checking out the weirdest of the weird on my picks of 5 strange facts about Dark Souls. Number 5. The Mystery of King Jar-Eel. Any major project is bound to have some cut content, small ideas that were great but just ended up not being finished. Sometimes these are just things that never quite got past the development stage, but what's odd about this entry is that there's actually a fully programmed boss that was removed from Dark Souls 1 at the last minute. This really isn't some scrap of half-completed code though. He has an attack pattern, specially crafted gear, and even has his own history. It's thought that undead King Jar-Eel was originally intended to be the lord of the Dark Wraiths, an evil group of soul stealers who break into worlds and wreak havoc. While normal Dark Wraiths are essentially just powerful skeletons in heavy armor, Jar-Eel appears to be almost human, implying that he may have had story ties that could explain the origins of these twisted, life-draining creatures. No one knows why they pulled him out of the game before its completion, but really, it's kind of a shame. I just wish we got to fight him for ourselves, and possibly even wear that awesome red armor. Number 4. Mind-bending design process. When you set to work developing a game, typically you start out by sketching out characters on paper, then making a model of what you think they should look like and handing it off to 3D designers. This ensures that the final product is close to what you thought of at the beginning. In its effort to stand out, Dark Souls takes a very backwards approach to this. From Software tests all of their creations digitally first. This is the key reason that so many of the monsters that we face off against have almost a nightmarish quality to them. They seem to defy reality in their subtle, creepy movements or in the horrible shifting forms that they take. Even the levels themselves have this otherworldly sense to them. If you go into the core of Dark Souls 2 and load every zone at once, many of them will actually overlap or wrap in on themselves in impossible ways. In their dedication to make the ultimate badass challenge, they didn't bother letting a little thing like physics get in their way. Number 3. Demon's Souls was almost cancelled. It's scary to think, but this amazing series was so close to being canned before it ever really began. When the early prototype of Demon's Souls was being constructed, it was coming along very poorly. For some reason, the team just couldn't figure out how to make this action fantasy mashup fun. That's when visionary director Hidetaka Miyazaki stepped in. In an interview, he said, "I saw that everyone was struggling with the project, so I figured I could take control of the game and turn it into anything I wanted. Best of all, if my ideas failed, nobody would care." After overhauling many of the main features, we ended up getting the Demon's Souls we all know today, but that didn't save it from having a rough launch. During its first week, this title only sold 20,000 copies, and Sony wasn't happy. Then something interesting happened. Sales began to spike. It seems that everybody who bought it was raving about it. Literally, fans were spreading the word so fast that they actually had to print more and even do a second release over here in America. Now, here we are 7 years later, Dark Souls 3 is about to come out, and it's one of the most successful trilogies ever, in large part due to the dedication of the fans. Number 2. A Bloodborne Time Traveler. This is Marvelous Chester, a bizarre gentleman that you encounter during the DLC of Dark Souls. Just looking at him, he's clearly very different from anyone else in the game. He wears fine clothing, he uses a hyper-advanced crossbow, and he doesn't seem afraid of the monsters that lurk around him. If you speak to Chester, he reveals that his strange nature is due to the fact that he's from a different time, the distant future. A demon called Manus, father of the Abyss, dragged him into the past, and now he's trapped. All of this is a rather far out tale, especially if you consider where he might have come from. For those of you who have played From Software's other major title Bloodborne, things may make a little more sense. In that, we took on the role of a hunter in the city of Yharnam. Now, glance at the architecture, the weapons of the townspeople, or even their outfits. Although it's not official, many theorize that Marvelous Chester was probably a warrior that lived in Bloodborne who was accidentally pulled into the past. This would explain why his combat style and behavior are totally unique to anyone else in Dark Souls. He was just a normal soldier sucked into this ancient land, hoping someday to find a portal back to his fancy future. Number 1. Its PlayStation predecessors. What is it that makes the Souls series so addicting? Is it the fantastic boss fights, the feeling of learning a new spell, or something simple like discovering a shortcut in a tough dungeon? Well, really it's all of these things and more. These are aspects that many people considered mastered back in 2009's Demon's Souls, when really they tie back to a game that few have heard of. This is Shadow Tower, a PlayStation title made by From Software in 1999. Notice anything familiar? It has a stamina meter, demonic enemies, and winding hallways that try to get you lost. It's basically first-person Dark Souls. In fact, this game even has souls that you spend to upgrade your character. It has a story very similar to Dark Souls, and you can learn about the lore of the land by reading these bloody shadows on the wall. You can tell this is where they got the idea of leaving messages for other players on the ground in your blood. In the sequel, Shadow Tower Abyss, we're taking on the role of an explorer, braving the depths of a mysterious land filled with the undead, and just by watching the opening cutscene, you can tell the designers were learning all the raw storytelling elements that would later on become the core of the Dark Souls series. While their plots don't directly connect, it is crazy to see what is at its heart an old-school PlayStation Souls game. The graphics honestly suck by today's standards, but they're still very important all the same. These first steps led to the awesome series we all know and love today. Did your favorite piece of trivia not make the list? Got an idea for a future episode? Leave it in the comments down below. Due to overwhelming fan feedback, the next video I'm going to be doing is all about Metal Gear Solid, so it looks like I've got a lot of research to do. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked this video, maybe check out my last video. Please subscribe, and if you want, share this somewhere with your friends.